I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bar Rescue After Show here on AfterBuzz TV. As you can tell, it is a very unusual day here in Hollywood. Let me quickly introduce the beautiful woman on my right, on your left. Guys, this is my wife.
Hello.
Laura Palmer Graham. Laura is such a trooper. Kevin, you guys know my normal panelist, Keven Undergaro, is out doing important captain's duties, making sure that the network is staying afloat. So Laura's pinch hitting today, and I'm very excited to have her here.
Lower your expectations. I'm no Keven Undergaro.
It's all right. She's actually better than Kevin. And Kevin will be fine if I said that. That's not true. Kevin's our captain. But you guys know my name is Jeff Graham. So excited to be here. Longtime Bar Rescue fan. Kevin got me to the show. Laura's a little newer to Bar Rescue, but I kind of got you into it because, I've been watching it here to cover the after show, and you've been tuning in here and there. We watched today's episode together. We have a lot of thoughts on it.
Oh, so many thoughts. I'm excited to share.
Before we dive in, just quickly, you guys know the reason we are in my apartment is because of coronavirus. I'm sure you guys have heard that the world is looking a little different today than it was last week. You guys can see we have our nice stock of supplies here, and I just knocked over our AfterBuzz sign. Fix it as we go live. This is the beauty of live TV, guys.
I'll just hold it the entire time.
But if you guys look, we even have some paper towels here. Plenty of supplies, making sure that we're staying afloat for coronavirus. So it's a very interesting time to be alive. But the thing is, AfterBuzz TV is so committed to getting our content out that we would stop at nothing. I will stop at nothing to make sure that I'm reporting on Bar Rescue. We've got some news and gossip too. We're going to talk a little bit about our Bar Rescue updates, what the status of the now Purser Bar is. I hate to say it, guys, things aren't looking great for them nowadays. And we're going to talk a little bit about small businesses, what we can be doing to support small business during this crazy time. All that being said, Laura.
Yes.
What did you think of today's episode of Bar Rescue?
Yeah, well, so I'm newer to Bar Rescue, like Jeff said. It was a ride.
Yes, that's the show. That's the show.
We're also drinking water to stay hydrated. Cheers.
Some sparkling water to be
water.
fancy, because that's how we do it in LA.
Absolutely. It was a ride. I mean, I've seen a couple episodes of Bar Rescue before, but I think gosh, the humanity. Like the guy, was it Brandon?
Brandon, yes.
Oh my gosh, Brandon, when he stormed out, or not stormed out, but just kind of
emotional
breakdown in the middle of John's kind of come to Jesus moment.
Yeah.
I was like, somebody go get him. I felt like it was like a rom-com. Like somebody needed to go give him a hug.
Yeah, it's been interesting, Laura. This season's been a lot more emotional than the Bar Rescue we're used to. And as you guys can tell, I'm kind of cheating my mouth both toward you and toward the screen so you guys can hear okay. But we're used to, Kevin talks about seasons 1 through 5 is mostly clowns. He calls them defiant morons, is what Kevin calls these bar owners, because they are convinced that they're right. And even if it's, a pirate-themed bar in the middle of Chicago, where there's no market for people who are interested in sort of pirate make-believe, these defiant moron bar owners are going to stick to their plan. Yeah. But John has kind of gotten tired of that format. He's gotten tired of trying to break through to people who don't want to see change. So there's been a lot more sort of emotional grounding in these recent episodes of Bar Rescue. So this kind of reaction is actually more of this season of Bar Rescue. It's really interesting. I actually prefer it.
Yeah, I think it's neat too to see somebody who is a bar owner who is teachable, where they realize that they didn't get into this situation by their having excellent business acumen and excellent taste and everything. And so I think it's really refreshing to see somebody really be teachable and say listen, I know that this is not a great situation and I'm bringing you in and I'm welcoming you in. And again, there was that toughness of the emotional breakdown and everything, but I feel like he got to a point where he was really teachable and he really felt like he was welcoming John in. And obviously, I mean, it paid off big time. So
yeah, and we're going to talk to John has very specific approaches he uses to get through to these bar owners. Yeah, so when we get to that segment of the show, we're going to go over that. But just so you all know, I'm going to be kind of covering the episode in order today. So we're going to start by just talking about our characters from the episode. Of course, Brandon Purser in Linda Lou, Utah. Oh, sorry, that's not right. In Layton, Utah. The bar is called Linda Lou. Of course, the catchphrase is time for two. We're going to talk about if we know what that means. As of right now, I think it's right over our head. John had some theories, but Brandon says that it's been his dream to own a bar since he was 12 years old. He did a book report on it. Can you relate to this, Laura?
I, too, did a book report on owning a bar. Yeah, that's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
appreciate that, but I cannot relate.
Yeah, you know, in fairness, Laura and I have loved television. Maybe we've dreamed of doing this kind of thing since we were 12.
Yeah,
so
that's true. But
I'm
to have
not-
something so linear where it's like, I want to own an establishment and that establishment is this bar, that is a very narrow scope.
Very narrow scope, very specific. Yeah. So this is where we get the really emotional crux of this episode. We meet Brandon's mom, Winona. Of course, she has MS. This is a crazy high stakes episode of this show. Winona's funded the entire bar, and they're already in debt. And Winona had just put her last $50K from retirement, albeit being a MS diagnosee. This was, I mean, talk about from a producing standpoint. Laura's a producer on a late night show in town, and associate producer. I give her more credit, but you know, this, I'm sure you could see from a storytelling perspective why this was a really high stakes moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And it feels like, you know, everybody can kind of relate to those family dynamics, I feel, of wanting to see your son succeed or wanting to see your friend succeed. But man, like the faith that it takes to put your entire retirement account, that is wild.
I know.
I you know, and I wonder if that money went in, I can't remember if they specified, but like before the diagnosis or if she was continuing to funnel money in as things went on. But if you've ever had a medical emergency, it's like, you know, there's enough emotional stress going on, as we could see in the episode, but you just don't want to worry about the financial side of things.
Especially when it's your retirement.
Yeah, gosh.
So we also meet our trio of kind of clownish bartenders. We have, let me see, I'm consulting my notes right as we speak. We have Anthony, who's a longtime friend of Brandon, and we also have Trina and Amanda. How did you feel overall about this kind of trifecta of Amanda, Brandon, and Anthony?
I mean, like the weirdest superhero group of all time.
I love it. The Avengers.
Like they all clearly love Brandon so much.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is like a classic situation of like, you need a little tough love. Like I feel like they're all just like, yeah, we'll do whatever, and you know, we want to help Brandon, but it's like, gosh, you've got to tell him to stop taking his mother's retirement. You've got to, you know, kind of some of that tough love was missing before John got there, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But God, I mean, like, I would have been interested to watch any of their singular stories play out for a full episode, which is how you kind of know. I feel like it's a good group of people. As if they're all captivating enough on their own.
Well said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think Brandon was out of line to not tell these three, his employees, that the company was going under in 4 days? That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, like, yes, but it's also like, if my rational side is like, well, I wonder if he was doing some sort of Hail Mary, where it's like he really had a big plan to turn it around, but like, if there had to be signs. Like, you don't just run out of money and then have 4 days left. It's like payroll starts to dwindle and like you stop getting certain resources in and things like that. Like, I don't think it's something that can just turn around. So they had to have an inkling, but
or maybe we'll say maybe it's a little convenient to build a good story on this episode that coincidentally the very last day the bar would have been.
Jeff, are you saying that Hollywood might manipulate reality in
Maybe
order
it
to create
happens.
high stakes?
Maybe it happens every once in a while, but either way, this bar was in trouble. One thing that I thought was really crazy was, of course, we have Phil Wills here. Phil is our bartender. Kevin, I'm shouting you out here. Kevin considers Phil one of the holy trinity of bartenders that we get on this show to come consult. During Recon, they're right next door, and the first thing they identify is this like really kind of sketchy outside. We have these green curtains. Laura, like, what did the bar remind you of? Like, what were the vibes you got from the outside, and did they match the inside to you?
Yeah, I mean, like we had this strip mall in my hometown that like went down all at once, but there was just like one Claire's store that like held out until the last minute. Like they were selling stud earrings as their rent was due and they couldn't pay it. And so it reminded me of that aesthetic where it's just like, ooh, as you drive by, you just have pangs.
Yeah.
There was a tailoring shop next door. I noticed one of the wine shots, and I was like, what? I wouldn't feel safe going there.
Yeah, it kind of had like back alley funeral home vibes to me.
Sure.
Like a lot of like plush, like weird green curtains. The fonts was like very late 1950s.
Yeah, and no identifiable like this is our product. It's like, what was it called?
Linda Lou's Time for Two.
Time for Two.
Yeah.
That just feels like.
The one joke I really want to shout John out on here is during Recon, of course, we have 2 members from the Vegas's NHL, their hockey team, and which is pretty cool. Nice job snagging that Their first drinks were terrible. So they asked for a second round, and John makes the joke of maybe that's why the slogan is time for two.
Yeah.
I do want to shout John. That was pretty funny.
That was pretty good.
Pretty funny.
I also loved the idea that John couldn't do surveillance outside of the place because it would have been too obvious. And so he says, we were lucky enough to get to rent space next door. And I'm just imagining that strip mall, but it seems like that whole area is suffering. They're like, oh, we need more money for this space. This is high demand.
He's positioning as if it was like a big reach for them.
Right. I'm
like,
sure it was like the Taylor's best day ever.
Yeah, totally.
Have John reach out to get some space. But
can we pay you very high guild minimums to rent out your space? They're like, sure, we'll take that.
Absolutely.
So John, the big criticism they had here, which I thought was interesting, was their kind of signature drink was this thing called a Huckleberry Limeade, which has whipped cream built into the cocktail.
Sure.
First of all, personally, not sure I want whipped cream in my cocktail. You like sweet drinks, though. You might be okay with that.
Yeah, if it tastes like a Jolly Rancher just marinating in water for like 48 hours, I'm a fan.
That's a Laura Palmer drink. Yeah. I say the grosser it is, the more like flies would want to drink it. If it's sitting out for too long, the more Laura wants it. But they didn't have whipped cream in the fridge. And John's big criticism is if that's your staple cocktail condiment, you gotta have it in the fridge.
Right, yeah. And you have to know like roughly how many you're serving on a regular basis and be ready for that.
That was to me the big issue with this bar though, was it wasn't overly gross. I mean, it was gross. We saw some nasty shots of the plumbing, but it wasn't overly deteriorated or decrepit. It was just kind of didn't have an identity and logistically and managerially a mess. They didn't have what they needed. None of these bartenders knew how to make a drink. I mean, they could. I feel like I could make a margarita.
Right.
You know.
And you're an idiot.
And I'm an idiot. No, she does.
I'm kidding. You're not.
Well, you know, depends on the day. Yeah.
No, I hear you. That feels like a staple that you would have to learn in bartending school.
Margarita. Yeah, that's
margarita.
like to me like a Manhattan margarita. Like you've got to know how to make those.
Yeah.
And they had no clue.
And they were using mix on top of everything,
know,
where it's like it wasn't even, the rest was on the bottom.
Oh boy, so John comes in. Now, very important question, Laura.
Yeah.
Kevin and I personally feel like Taffer is overdoing it on the food throwing this season.
Oh, interesting.
Do you feel like he was overdoing it on the food throwing? A lot of thrown food.
Yeah, I feel like he was overdoing it. The moment that really like got me in my core was when there was when Brandon, I'm getting ahead of myself, but when Brandon was cleaning up, when Taffer like just laid it out and made him clean everything up.
Yeah.
He was like wiping dough off of a flat screen TV. And I was like, can we just back up? Like, where did we go so wrong that there is actual like raw dough on a flat screen TV?
Well, that's what we've noticed is like the food throwing's gotten to a point where there are like civilian casualties where like it used to be that like John throws wings, he throws drinks, the ice goes everywhere. Like maybe it gets on the staff, but now it's getting on like random patrons who are like, I didn't come to this restaurant to have chicken wings thrown in my face.
Well, I mean, you never know.
You never know when Taffer's there. But Taffer, you know I love you. You listen. I think Taffer sort of listens to our podcast. So John, if you're listening right now, you know I love you to death. I think you're overdoing it on food throwing. I don't know if we need that much throwing of the food. Either way, he comes down hard on Brandon, and I think at the time it was the right move. We'll have to say whether or not John crossed a line. Well, let's go ahead and transition.
Yeah.
The next day we have sort of, it always feels like, the way I picture this scene is it's the next morning, the door opens. It feels like a couple after fighting, like the next day over breakfast. Like the mood.
What are you talking about, Jeff? We never fight.
We never fight. Cheers. So Taffer comes in. Things feel a bit diffused. But Brandon pretty quickly, everyone's emotional.
Yeah.
The staff is emotional. Brandon's emotional. Why do you think not only was Brandon emotional, but why do you think the whole room was so emotional?
Yeah, I think kind of like people band together in tough times.
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing it now, like with everything that's going on in the world too. But I think that this team in particular is really invested in Brandon as a person and Brandon's family. Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem like his mother, Mary Lou, is that right?
I've got it. Winona,
I'm sorry.
You're confused. Linda Lou is what you're thinking.
Linda Lou is what I was thinking. So it seems like they all have a familiarity with his mother and her situation and have been friends. So it's, it's not just whether a bar would close. It's whether this family would be able to like take care of her, whether they would be able. So I can understand like the emotional weight to that. I can empathize rather. I can't understand, but I think that they feel a sense of joint responsibility for this, and they don't want to let him or more importantly her down.
Yeah, well said. It was interesting. Brandon, of course, has an emotional breakdown. He retreats to the bathroom, And I got to applaud John here. Personally, I felt like he really did a good job of meeting Brandon where he was at.
Yeah.
You know what we've noticed this season especially is no matter what the temperature of the room is the night before, excuse me, no matter how much that's live TV, guys. Too much sparkling water, I guess. No matter what the temperature of the room is, however many pieces of food John has thrown around, the next morning he really does a good job of knowing how far to push it with these bar owners. Clearly, Brandon was in a place where yelling wasn't going to do anything.
Sure.
He kind of had his heart broken. Like John needed to kind of reach out and be an emotional support in that moment.
Well, and it was a situation too where I think John realized we've got to get this guy to an okay place before we get this place to an okay place.
Yeah.
So it's like, Brandon is the kind of the heart behind it. So until he has his head together, they can't really effectively put that bar back together, So sending him home for a little self-care.
For the podcast listeners, Laura did just hashtag with her fingers.
Yes.
So hashtag self-care.
Yeah, hashtag self-care. I think that's exactly what was needed because you could tell, like when he came back in, he was refreshed. He was ready to kind of dive in. He just hadn't given himself that mental or physical space from the bar.
Yeah.
And I feel like, a change of location and a little bit of rest can make a world of difference when you're in a stressful situation.
Totally. So we go to bar training with Phil. I will speak for Keven right now. I know for a fact he will not like the idea of putting Pop Rocks in a cocktail.
No.
How do you feel, Laura?
No. Don't put them anywhere. It's like, let's really elevate this bar. Let's take some candy that you can buy at your local bodega and throw it in a glass. No. Why would you do that?
This is a bit of a symptom of the show. Is they're like, we have an untrained bar staff that doesn't know how to make a margarita. So before a stress test, when we overload the bar with people to set them up for failure, put Pop Rocks in a cocktail.
I mean, why not?
Like they always kind of overdo the first cocktail. The more I watch the show, the more I'm wondering if that's sort of to set them up for failure. Like if you're like, it was like 2 parts vodka, 1 part soda water, this, Pop Rocks, a little whipped cream on top. Right. I think they sort of do that to.
I will say though, once, and again, I'm getting ahead of myself, but like, once the bar makeover was revealed and kind of like the theme of it, it felt like it made a little bit more sense because it was like funky cocktails.
Yeah.
And I will say I really liked the like flavor infuser, the pipette that they put in there. I thought that was kind of a fun thing, but it was that situation. I think it was Coco Chanel said like, look in the mirror before you leave the house and take 1 accessory off. It's like, look at your cocktail before you serve it and take 1 Pop Rocks container out. It's like, it doesn't need Pop Rocks and a pipette. It just needs one of those things.
How insightful. Sometimes in producing, we call that putting a hat on a hat on a hat. I've heard producers use that term before. So, man, I've got a smart wife, you guys. Okay, so we are up for the stress test. They always flood this bar.
Literally.
I know. That was, the producers must have been so stoked.
Oh, yeah.
When the bar started flooding, I think the big symptom here was just overcrowding. I think like sometimes you blame the team. I was seeing that really just the blueprint of this bar couldn't support the overflow of people here.
Yeah, and I think too, like there is a choreography, like the bar is clearly not set up yet. The bar staff rather is not set up or prepared for that volume of people yet. And there is like a choreography shift between having 5 people at the bar and having 25 or 30 or 50 people there.
Yeah.
And there's just kind of like a choreography between bartenders where you know that you're covering this space. And I think that they, it's like a bunch of freshman dance students hopping into a Met Opera performance.
Yeah, that's
and
well
it just
said.
didn't work, and
It didn't work.
And then on top of that, when my understanding, was it sewage that was coming out of the bar?
I felt like it wasn't sewage. I felt like it was water, but like a pump, like a hose got loose, or I couldn't exactly tell.
I like to imagine some PA was in the back, just like cutting it.
Some intern, but it was like soapy water. Everyone was slipping. It was already too crowded.
Yeah.
I think John was right to shut it down when he shut it down.
Yeah. It was at its breaking point.
It was at its breaking point.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The music.